it's not wrong, David, to have a conversation and say, hey, let's have a follow-up. You know what I mean? Because I think sometimes we talk, and it's good to come back in that situation and just follow up with it to make sure we're still all on the same page, to make sure, we've said what we needed to say.
Welcome to today's episode of Walking in Faith, a podcast to help you grow in your daily walk with God. Join Treg and David in this study of James as they take a closer look at the dangers of being double-minded. If you enjoyed today's study, please subscribe and share it with someone else.
Hey everyone, welcome back to part 3, I think, when it comes to the power of the tongue. And David and I coming to you from West Virginia. If you watched last week, you know that we haven't changed our clothes. These are our favorite outfits, and it's just what we like to wear. And that's our story, and we're sticking to it. David, what's up, man? Everything okay?
Yeah, it's good. We got a good weekend coming up with youth group. We've got a high school senior activity.
Yeah.
So I know maybe a few of them are excited about that.
Yeah.
I think most of them have senioritis so bad they don't care what goes on.
Right. It's crazy. I can't believe. I was just writing out last night major events coming up from now until May, and it's
that's a full calendar.
Graduation is going to be here before we know it. It's like evangelist friend Rhonda Gard wants us all to go to Israel in May, and I'm like, there's no way I could give up 10 days at this time of year.
That'd be tough.
I'd love to, but I just don't see it happening. With a Christian school, everything's different in May. And in building, we've got sports banquet this week. You got your outing this week. Then you have going into Easter, and then graduations, and it's like it's just a different ball game altogether this time of year. You think, man, when basketball's over, things will slow down. They don't. They just get worse. And then I think it's the number one statement in our ministry. It will just, in a few more weeks, things will slow down. I've got a guy I'm meeting with today that he said, we've been trying to meet for a month, or he's been trying to meet with me for a month. And he's like, can we meet this week? I'm like, this is not a good week, man. You said that last week. I'm like, welcome to my life.
Yeah.
There's just no time, and that's just the way it is. So yeah, busy time of year to say the least, but it's exciting, and that's good. The seniors, they'll have a great time. I think they'll really enjoy that, and I think they need that as they all get together and their last moments together. Really,
it really is.
Other than Facebook, there's been kids I haven't seen since I graduated with, in '96. So yep. That's good. I'm glad you're doing that, and that's going on. So we're going back to James chapter 3, really just getting to some practical, and practical might not be your thing. You might be more expository, and so you're just kind of not listening to this whatsoever at all, and that's fine. But just some practical lessons on the power of the tongue, and I just had 6 points I wrote out talking about speech and how to guard our speech and what to say. So David, just in review, talking about the power of the tongue and the things we talked about last time. Anything to add to that as talk about being precise or pondering or to perceive, who we're talking to?
I think that the only thing that I would maybe even add to that is when you have bad news to deliver or a tough conversation to have.
Yeah.
We've talked about being precise. I've learned one thing that has kind of helped me in delivering that is to help brace the person for it.
Yeah,
so you go up to them and say, hey, I have something hard to say. I have some bad news.
Yeah.
Give them like 1 second, 2 seconds to brace themselves.
Yeah.
And then just say
That's good. Yeah.
Because you talked about rambling and sometimes we can get so nervous that we could just dance all around the issue when it's just like, hey, I'm gonna say something bad and then just say it.
That's really good. I think too with that is we can freak people out by saying, hey, I need to meet with you. There's nothing like that text message that says, hey, we need to talk.
Oof, yeah.
When I first transitioned here at Faith as a pastor, you're on eggshells because he was here 49 years and, now I'm the pastor. And one of the old timers kind of grabbed me and pulled me up to him, which he talked, it was like right here anyway. And he's like, I need to talk to you after the service. And I'm like, Dan, that's fine. All good, man. He's like, it might not be all good. And so that's right before I get up to preach. So then I'm at the pulpit and my heart's beating 100 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, what was it? What did I do? Why is he upset? And your brain's trying to go through all of that. So you finally get through your sermon, which I don't remember, obviously, but I remember this conversation. And I'm like, damn, what is wrong, man? What's happening? He's like, I don't think I'm going to be able to usher anymore. Like, what? What? At least it could be, hey, I need to talk to you about ushering. I mean, that would be one thing. I'd be like, okay, fine, whatever. But I worry, and I'm trying to preach. That's on my mind. And so, yes, I think being precise, being to the point with some of those things. So don't text somebody and say, hey, I want to meet with you. Text somebody and say, hey, I need to meet with you and talk about. And I think it's even fair for us to say when we get that text saying, hey, I need to meet with you tomorrow. Now, sometimes perception, you know what's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of know. You can read the people. You know what they're going through. And for the most part, I'm pretty good at that. But it never hurts to send a text message. Can you let me know why so I can prep my thoughts? I think that's only fair, because, again, when you get hit blindsided, it's hard to know what to say. And I think that goes in with our next 3 points. So when we think about the power of the tongue then, number 4, as we go into continuing this lesson, is prolong. Okay, and prolong, we think about that, extending, what we say or extending the words. It's not wrong, David, to have a conversation and say, hey, let's have a follow-up. You know what I mean? Because good. I think sometimes we talk, and it's good to come back in that situation and just follow up with it, to make sure we're still all on the same page, to make sure, we've said what we needed to say. So, for instance, yesterday we had a 2.5-hour board meeting. I think even with that meeting, there's a lot of follow-up that's got to happen, on things that were discussed and things that were talked about. And even, somebody says something in church, say, how are you doing, man? I'm not doing so good. What's wrong? Okay, text them later and say, hey, we had that brief conversation as you were walking out the door. Just want to follow up, see how things are going. And that can go a long way with people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Because I think we tend to be in a hurry, and it's like we hear it and we're out. As opposed to, let's prolong this conversation. Let's carry this on. And not just in one ear and out the other. It's thinking about how, a prolonged conversation can enhance a relationship, how it can, encourage somebody else. So I think there's ways that we fail with that. And maybe sometimes it's because we don't want to prolong it. But we have to. And to carry on that conversation. Hey, you kind of opened up with some of your feelings with me in regard to this, can we pursue that again? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I think with the power of the tongue, yeah, we need to be precise. But at the same time, some conversations, it doesn't hurt to extend and to carry on. Okay, and then number 5, the complete opposite of that is to postpone. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I need to think about this. I don't think that's a cop-out. I think it's honest, and you just need some time to think. Mm-hmm. There's a biblical principle that says, okay, let not the sun go down upon your wrath. All right, you've heard that, I've heard that. How have you heard that used?
So most of the time I've heard it say that, hey, if you have something to say, if someone offends you, then you need to go to them immediately and take care of it, whatever that means.
Right. And there is some truth to that, okay? So I've heard it like in the marriage relationship a lot. And if there's a spout, don't let the sun go down upon your wrath. But sometimes you just need to sleep on it. And there's been times where I've told Carrie, look, I'm just not in the frame of mind or in the place that I need to be to have this conversation right now. I promise we'll have this conversation, but I don't really know what to say. If we could just sleep on it, and then we can continue this later.
Yeah, I think with that verse, we might be able to look at it too, that sometimes we just kind of need to get over ourselves. It doesn't necessarily mean maybe that you have to talk about it then. Maybe it just simply means calm down. You need to perceive that now is not a good time.
Yeah.
And then once you can think straight, then have that conversation.
I like it. Yeah, I really like that. Because a lot of times after you sleep on something, it's not that big a deal in the morning. We have a couple that used to be in our church, and she would sit there and stew on things at night, and he'd just fall right to sleep, And he would joke. He'd get to the point where he'd be asleep, and Bethany would wake him up, and he'd go, what'd I do? I'm sorry. And go right back to bed. She wanted to continue the conversation, and he didn't even know what he did. But I know I had to do something. I'm sorry. I want to go back to sleep. But the other side is you don't want to be in such a rough state that you wake up mad at somebody either, because that's just allowing bitterness to grow. And I think there is, a place for that. So let not the sun go down upon your wrath, be angry and sin not, neither give place to the devil. And so with all of that, the devil can't come in and work with bitterness and anger. And we just got to be wise in how we handle it, whether it's precise or maybe it needs to be postponed. And we need to have that conversation later. And then finally, the last one I have, David, is number 6. We need to practice self-control. We've got to train ourselves to be more mindful of words, okay, and resist the urge to speak impulsively. This takes practice, but over time you'll develop self-control needed to keep you from saying too much. And really, as we look at those other 5 points that we have here, to perceive, to ponder, to be precise, prolong if we need to, postpone, practicing self-control is where it comes to. Practicing being mindful of the things that we say, being mindful of our words. And not only, I think, being mindful of practicing self-control with that, it's practicing self-control when somebody says words to us. Because it's easy for us to go off. It's easy for us to get upset. It's easy for the kids to come home from school and say, this teacher said this, or, for my wife to say, well, this parent said this to me, and we want to react. And so I'm calling that teacher right now. How dare they tell my son that? Well, then you could end up really humiliated because you find out that's not really what they said at all. And that's where, we've got to be able to learn to practice self-control. And Proverbs says a soft answer does what? It turns away wrath. And Solomon also says, a fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it till afterwards. And somebody that just blows up, that goes off the handle, that will let me give you a piece of my mind, those people, Solomon says, are fools. And we don't want to come across, you don't want to come across as a fool. And so in order to prevent that, we've got to practice self-control. David, anything?
No, I think that's good to keep all of this in mind. It's this is a constant thing. I think we always have to be ready to measure our words and to perceive how the other person is going to take what you have to say, and really have to just think about everything we say, everything we type, everything we send out. I had a teacher in college of a business communications class, and she told us that anytime she had any type of negative email to send out, no matter what degree, she would type it out and then save the draft, but she wouldn't send it for at least a few hours.
Yeah.
And then she would always go back and look at it and then see, okay, is this okay? And she said that doing that, no matter how big or small the bad news was, she said that helped her in a lot of different business transactions and even in her personal life.
Absolutely. I know when the first offer was made by Pastor Moran for me to come here to Faith, I'd been assistant pastoring up to that point for 14 years. And he's like, I just want a couple years with you here so I can train you and get you ready for ministry. I'm like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. The first ministry was 5 years. The second ministry was 5 years. Now this ministry is 2 years. No, right? 14 years is enough. I don't need 2 more years. And so I wrote a letter and said, Pastor Moran, I appreciate the offer. I appreciate you wanting me to come. But, I don't see why I need 2 more years, under a pastor. I've already had 14 years under a pastor. Why do I need 2 more to get me where I need to be a pastor? I'm ready to pastor now. And that was true. But if I would have sent that letter, it would have came across as arrogant, just perceiving Pastor Moran. what I said was true, but his perception was, well, you think you know everything. You don't know as much as you think you know. And if I'd have sent that letter, I probably wouldn't be here today, because he'd have never considered, having me come. But then just a month later, he's got cancer, and I'm not being trained under him. I'm coming to take over for him. Mm. And I'm just glad that I never sent that letter. I'm sure it's on file somewhere. But again, that's one I'm glad I held on to, that I didn't send, because that could have, hindered whatever. So, yeah. So just prayerfully go into everything that we say, everything that we do, everything that we post, everything that, we put out. And I think we try to do the same here, just trying to preach the word to encourage others. Well, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Are we done?
That's good.
I promise we won't talk about what we taught speech next time. Actually, the next one's going to be wisdom. Wisdom that comes from above, and wisdom that's earthly, sensual, and devilish. I was preaching at Pensacola a few months ago, and I said earthly, sensual, Disney-ish. And that's all I said. And I think I even, did a disclaimer saying I still have Disney Plus, but it didn't matter. I got a call from a buddy of mine saying, "Hey, my daughter said you really went after Disney this week." And I was like, I didn't go after Disney this week. But I will say that Disney can be devilish with the wisdom they're trying to give our kids. So we'll talk about that next time on Walking in Faith. Thank you for joining us, David. Anything to add to as we close up shop?
That's great.
All right. Well, you all have a wonderful day. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you next time.